my friends, and welcome to episode 118 of the Kiss Army Nation podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Pasquale Veri.
And I am Claudio Spera. Welcome to the show, everyone. As you will know, our podcast is extremely focused on the fans and their experiences. Wouldn't it be your dream to move from being a fan club member to work with and for your favorite band? Our special guest tonight has worked with several iconic and amazing musicians, including Chip Trick, Ronnie James Dio, Ace Frehley, Brittany Fox, Joan Jett, Slaughter, White Lion, and the list goes on and on. And yes, you guessed it, he worked extensively with Kiss. Over the years, his career has evolved to become manager, producer, graphic designer, marketing specialist, and photographer. To go deep about the amazing life of such a music icon, so please give it up for David Snowden. Welcome to the show, David, and thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight.
Oh, well, thanks for wanting to talk to me. Because believe me, my wife didn't want to talk to me tonight. She said, go upstairs.
We'll talk to you for a couple of hours.
There you go. So we'll keep you here.
No, Dave, you're just proof that it's so amazing to be a Kiss fan. You're living every Kiss fan's dream. You started off as a Kiss fan, and then you started working with all these amazing musicians, including Kiss. But there is a beginning to this story. So what is your origin story? How did you get into Kiss?
First time I saw them was the Paul and Halloween special, 1976. And the following year, my brother brought home Kiss Alive 2. And that's what really got me hooked on it. So by the time Dynasty came up, I pestered my mother until she finally got us tickets to go see Kiss, which was a really special show because that's one of the ones that ended up coming in on video years later.
Kissology, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun the very first Kiss show that you go to was out there on video.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That was kind of nice.
Nice. And what are some of your most memorable Kiss experiences at a young age?
Oh, God. Just too many of them. I guess when I was younger, my mother took us to a T-shirt shop that also had biker paraphernalia. It used to be called, back then they called it a head shop. Because they sold a lot of the paraphernalia for smoking drugs and whatnot, but they had all the Kiss decals. Remember the old iron-ons that you'd have to go to? Yeah, you'd have to go on vacation to like an oceanfront place, and they had all the T-shirt shops and get them all pressed, and they had all of that sort of stuff, and it was a fun time because when you were younger, everything that you got always seemed really special. And you'd have to go into the magazine stores to find out what the latest news was, that was going on with Kiss. And, so anytime you walked into whether it was a convenience store, magazine store, drugstore, and you saw something that had Kiss on the cover, you just ran right over, and then you wanted to thumb through everything else to figure out, oh God, what's going on? So
yeah, that's the bad thing about the internet today. Everything is so easily accessible. There's no mystery anymore. It was really something back in the day. Every little piece of information was gold, and we just ate it up.
And you would sit there and you would talk to your friends, your neighbors, and it became this really good thing. And it was a back and forth, and it was not sitting on a computer typing through a keyboard going, hey, I'm a big Kiss fan. You had that interaction. You tore up your magazines, not realizing that you probably should have kept them intact, and you put the posters up on the wall. You got the new album, it had the poster in it, you hung it up right away. So those were always good times. I mean, it's not as innocent anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So Dave, you mentioned before, first show in '79 for the Dynasty tour, and then you were completely hooked up, and then I guess your fandom grew exponentially. But there is a life-changing event that happened to you back in 1982. So, and that has the name Kiss Revolution. What was that? So can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, I had joined and going to all the magazines in the back, like Circus Magazine always had a classified section. And there was actually a fanzine out of Canada that was called The Oath. And I joined that. And I was seeing what they were doing with it. And I thought, I could probably do this. And because Kiss at that point was kind of on the downs, slope, between Unmask, The Elder, and then we're just starting to get into Creatures of the Night. So I started to send letters up to Glickman Marks and asking them what was going on with Kiss. Told them I wanted to start a newsletter. The first person that got back to me was Chris Lent, who sent me a press kit for Creatures of the Night before it came out. And he told me, he said, if you ever have any questions, you call my office. So I started this fanzine. At the time, it was called The Kiss Revolution, and put out a couple issues. Ace Frehley's mother, she was really into it. I would send her the issues. She would write me letters and tell me what was going on with Ace or what she thought was going on. And one of the letters she sent, she actually said, she hears more about her son through the newsletters I was doing versus talking to him.
Are you serious? Oh my God.
Wow. And it was probably about 6-8 months into that I got a call from Keith LaRue, who was doing Kiss merchandising in Massachusetts, and he was doing something that was called, his company was called Kiss Off. So he asked if we could combine what he was doing with merchandising, what I was doing with this fanzine, and let's do a full-blown fan club.
Oh, okay.
So we decided to go ahead, and our thought was, let's kind of pick up where the Kiss Army left off, since there was no more Kiss Army here in the United States. And we called it the Kiss Force, which we got the title. If you read the text inside the Creatures tour book, it talks about that the sheer energy from the Kiss Force could send Eric's drums to the moon and back.
Nice.
And it was like Kiss Force, that's got to be the name. And
Nice.
that's how that started. So
that is so cool. So cool. So I want to go back a little bit, David, to some of your earlier experiences. Something happened, something special happened during the Lick It Up tour. I think it's in Baltimore back in '84. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was the first time I ever got to meet a member of Kiss.
Okay.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay.
I spent the entire day out with a couple other guys. We went to every hotel in Baltimore, trying to figure out where Kiss was staying, because we were very determined that we were going to meet them. And, we came up with nothing. So when I came back home, I started to make calls to every hotel. And I kept asking for Chris Lent, because that was a name that I knew from the Creatures tour book. Finally, they put me through to a room, and I woke him up. Wasn't real happy with me. He hung up. So I called back. And then finally he said to me, he said, David, he said, what do you want? And I said, I want to meet Kiss. And he said, okay, so I'll take care of that. He said, I'll see you at the show tonight. He said, check at the will call. And he left me backstage passes. And he left me 2 tickets, even though I had already camped out for 3 consecutive years. I spent the entire night on the street of Baltimore, which if you ever check the news and you read up about Baltimore, it is not a place you want to spend the night, especially by yourself.
Right.
But I did it 3 years in a row, and every year I had exactly the same seat. Section 1, seat 1, row 1.
Oh, wow.
I was right there on Gene's side, right in the aisleway. So it was really nice. But when I got there, I picked up the passes. I ran to the merchandise stand. I bought a bunch of stuff. And then I went backstage. And as I was looking around trying to find somebody, in walked Gene Simmons.
Oh, wow.
So it was the first time meeting him. And even before he walked in, I met the person who was doing all their wardrobe. And I gave her a bunch of Polaroid pictures that I had taken of my entire Kiss collection, which was my bedroom at my parents' house. And she took those, and I had my name and address on the back. And about 2 weeks after the show, she actually mailed them back, and they were signed by everybody in the band.
Oh, wow.
Nice. Wow.
So,
Nice.
yeah. So that was predating all of the, hey, you want an autograph? It's $50.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
everybody else in the band signed this. That's going to be $125 now.
That's right. The more signatures you have, yeah, that's right.
Yes.
But
The higher
that's
up it goes in the price.
right. But that's the thing, right? Talking to so many fans, it seemed like Kiss was so easily accessible back in the day. It seems like every second person was meeting the band like no problem whatsoever. And now if you want to meet the band, $10,000, $5,000. Was it really that easy to meet the band back then?
I think it was easy to meet any band back then, because if you went to a show and you hung out and you found the backstage area, you could find the backstage door and just sit there and wait for them to come out, or wait for them earlier in the day when they were doing sound check or whatnot. I mean, honestly, I'm going to tell you, it's probably easier to do it today because it's easier to hand somebody a bunch of money
Yeah.
and
That's
then
true.
go
Yeah.
and at least get that opportunity to be able to take a picture with the band, to do stuff. I mean, it's like back then it was all hit or miss. You didn't know if you were going to run into somebody, if you were going to have a chance to meet somebody. Like on the Animalized tour, Gene had just finished his movie. I was up in Massachusetts. We were backstage. Guy came in with Gene's bass axe, and I was like, "Oh God, I got to take a picture with that." And he was like, "Well, you don't touch it." He said, "But you can stand next to it, get a picture." So I knelt down. We got a picture next to it. Our car ended up coming out. Hung out with him for the longest time. Then when Gene came in, Gene still had the movie star haircut because that was Runaway.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Gene, can I get a picture?" And he was like, not now.
Better not.
And it was like, okay. Well, and I get that, because it's all a part of the persona of what Kiss is.
Yeah.
The long hair, that certain look to it. And but while we were there on the Animalized tour, Bruce Kulick came in. And when I saw Bruce, I was like, "Bruce," I said, "Man, it's just really nice to meet you. We're doing this fan club. It's called the Kiss Force. We'd love to do an interview with you sometime. When your tenure with Kiss is over with, can I get your information? Let's keep in touch and we'll keep covering you." And he's like, "Why would you want to do that?" I was like, "Dude," I said, "now you're a part of the Kiss family." And he went, "I never thought about that." I was like, "Dude," I said, "I already went out and bought the Blackjack album." I didn't have the heart to tell him I only paid $1 for it. It was
don't need to mention that.
But he came out, then Mark St. John came out, and of course it was like, "Hey Mark, you gonna play tonight?" He was like, "No, I don't think it's gonna be tonight." I asked if he had a guitar pick. He gave me one of the guitar picks that just had the Kiss logo on one side, because officially there was never a Kiss Mark St. John guitar pick.
Okay.
None of them had his signature on it. Even the first year that Bruce played, it wasn't until after the Detroit show, when he became a full-fledged member of Kiss, did they have Bruce Kulick guitar picks. But Mark said, well, he gave me the Kiss one that had the blank side, and I was like, "Dude, it's not even signed." And he forgot, because he wasn't accustomed to signing Mark St. John. He actually put MN, because he said, "I don't have enough room to put my whole name." And I was like, "MN." And he went, "Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to do that." He says,
Mark Norton.
He says, "Let me have that back." And I was like, "No." I said, "You got another one?"
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
But that was the night that I got a very unique experience to get a picture with Eric and with Mark.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of very sad now when you think about it, was
Yeah.
the two departed members of
Yeah.
Kiss.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's incredible. Now, do you feel that your work on Kiss Force allowed you to establish more of a rapport with the Kiss management and the members of the band?
Yeah, because uh, during that time, I kept calling not only the management office, and they were sending me some of the fan mail so we could send them some information on what we were doing. Um, I also started badgering George Sewitt, who was managing Ace Frehley at the time. Was trying to get in touch with him to get him to let me interview Ace. Was calling out to California where Peter Criss lived, trying to get in touch with him. And then eventually Kiss came around and said, hey, if you want to do an interview with Eric, you certainly can. So I got to do a nice interview with Eric. He sent me a nice thank you note. Then I did an interview with Ace Frehley, which the Ace one, I got that after I went to a show in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Ken Sharp had invited me to the show, and a lot of people know Ken from all of the stuff that he's done with Kiss. And Ken put me on the guest list. I went to the show. This was one of the first 7 shows that Ace did on the East Coast before he had officially taken off his makeup. He was a 5-piece band at the time where they had Richie Scarlett, John Regan, Anton Fig. Arthur Stead was the keyboard player that was on stage, and Ace. Nobody was allowed to take any pictures. They making sure they had security out there confiscating cameras and taking film from people. But after the show was over with, the backstage door was just a curtain. And I thought, what are they going to do, throw me out? So I walked through the door. I saw George Sewitt, and I walked up to him. I said, George Sewitt. And he looked at me. He goes, who the F are you, and what the F are you doing here? And I said, well, George, I said, I'm David Snowden. I've called you several times. You haven't returned a call. I want to interview Ace. So he turns around and he goes, keep an eye on him. Don't let him go anywhere. So he has Anton Fig grab my arm. And he's like, you're hanging with me right now.
Wow.
Nice.
And then I started talking to Anton about the Kiss fan club. And I said, we have people from all over the world. I said, even South Africa. I said, God, who from South Africa would like Kiss? And Anton goes, well, I'm actually from South Africa.
That's right.
I was like, wow, okay. Small world, isn't it? But eventually George came out. He took me back, introduced me to Ace. He told me I wasn't going to do an interview that day, but we would do something. And about 2 weeks later, it was Power Station, New York City, doing an interview with Ace Frehley when he was getting ready to do the scratch vocals for Into the Night. That was being produced at that time by Tony Bon Jovi, John Bon Jovi's uncle, I think it is, or cousin or something. So the Bon Jovis have quite a few different people, because at one point, one of the guys said Joseph Bon Jovi, who sat on top of Sony Signatures when Kiss did the reunion tour, he was the big merchandise guy. And he was related to John as well. So
Okay.
So David, so all of this is happening, around 84, 85. Actually, what you mentioned about Ace must have been around 85, I guess. But is it fair? What is it exactly that did you start working with the band and for the band? What did you do for Animalize and Asylum? Did you do something for them? So did you get into something that goes beyond, a Kiss Force and what you were doing with the Kiss fan club?
Well, it was in conjunction with the fan club, but then it became talking more so to the people at Polygram. Because Polygram being the record company, then it was like, hey guys, we've got this mailing list. This is what we're doing. And they wanted us to start getting people to write to the magazines, get them to start covering Kiss, to write to MTV, to have them put Kiss on MTV, because at that point, MTV didn't have Dial MTV where people could call in every day. It was, they needed to get letters in there. Same thing with the magazines. The more mail that they got on a band, the more likely they were to cover the band.
Yeah.
You know, and it worked out really nice because Polygram eventually did give me a gold and a platinum for both Asylum and for Animalize. It's kind of interesting because if you look on the RIAA website, which is the Recording Institute Association of America, if you look up the different KISS records and look up KISS Asylum, they have it listed as gold, not platinum, but I actually do have a platinum record for Asylum. So who knows? Could be somebody's misaccounting. I don't know. But,
I think you have it hanging on the wall, right? So you have your Asylum platinum there?
Yeah, it's somewhere. I don't have anything in order. I kind of mix them all up. So.
Interesting. And what are your do you recall some anecdotes or something funny with your interviews with Ace or something that I'm sure that Ace being such a character, you must have gone through a lot of stuff with him.
At the very end of the interview with Ace, I had asked him, I had a answering machine at the time that you put a cassette in and you could record a message.
Yeah.
And I asked him if he would record me a message when people call. And I know it's out on the internet because I've heard it on other people's voicemail where you hear somebody say, "Hi, this is Ace Frehley," and he starts laughing and he says, "Call back later." But yeah, Ace was always a lot of fun. And after the interview at the one that happened at the power station, a couple weeks later, George Seward invited Keith and I to the Hard Rock Cafe because Ace was going to donate one of his smoking guitars. And when we went up to the Hard Rock Cafe, this was the original one that was in New York City that had part of an old Cadillac hanging out of the front end of it.
Yeah. Okay.
And as we were getting ready to go in, a guy was coming out and he held the door for us. And one of the people with us, they were like, "Wait a minute, that's Billy Joel."
No, really? Oh my
God. We stood there and we were talking to Billy for a while. And I had this huge 16 by 20 picture of Ace. I had Billy sign the back of it because I was like, I got to get the guy's autograph. And then we're like, so we're going to go in and see Ace give away his smoking guitar. And what did Billy Joel do? He held the door open again for us.
Wow.
Like, what a nice guy. Now you'd have to pay, at least $5,000 to get him to hold anything for you.
Exactly. True.
I shouldn't say that. I love Billy Joel. So, I mean, it was a really exciting thing to see that. So, it happened. So.
No, speaking of nice guys, you had the privilege of meeting all 10 of the KISS members, and everybody that we talked to who met Eric Carr says he's such a nice guy, so down to earth. He gives you everything when he talks to you. Was that your experience with Eric as well?
Well, let me tell you, probably the funniest experience that I had with Eric was backstage at one of the shows. You would always walk past the catering just to see if anybody was in there. And Eric was in there and he was eating some ice cream. And so I hollered to him and he was like, he says, "David, just a minute. As soon as I'm done." And I thought, wow, I can't believe he remembered my name.
Wow.
And then he said to me, "Oh, Dave," he says, "come on in." And he's making me ice cream. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. But that's the kind of guy that he was, So, I mean, I always loved that about Eric. He was very friendly. He was very open. When you did interviews with him, there was a lot of things that he would mention to you. Then he'd be like, let's not, don't put that in,
Okay.
But KISS was a very big deal to him. I mean, that was the guy's whole life. That's what he loved doing. Yeah. So, I mean, he loved to play the drums, and KISS was his band.
Yeah. Whenever anybody talks about Eric and their experiences meeting him, I could visualize the way Eric interacts with the fans. No other member of the band even comes close to being like that.
He would write letters every time we put out a newsletter. And one of the times I was with him, I said, "Eric," I said, "you need to write another letter for us." And I said, "Don't forget to put the F word in there." So he wrote a letter and said, Hey Kiss Force. I always put F in all my letters, so F you. And I was like, well, I asked, so.
So sweet.
And I'm also curious, what about your interactions with Vinnie Vincent? We know that he gave you a call or something. Was it back in '85?
Yeah, that was right after he left Kiss, was
Yeah.
thrown out of Kiss, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But Vinny, I had found an address for him in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where he was recording some demos for his solo project. And when I finally got in touch with him, he called one day. We started talking. So we started to put little interviews with him in the Kiss Force newsletter, because to me, Kiss really was a big family. It didn't matter that Ace was gone, Peter was gone, now Vinny was gone, Mark St. John came in, Mark was out, Bruce was in. It didn't matter to me. That only made more Kiss to go around.
Yeah.
Because now we didn't get just a new Kiss album, we got a Frehley's Comet, a Vinnie Vincent, we got a White Tiger, we got all that stuff. So it was kind of like, to me, it was extra bonus stuff. But in having all the conversations that I did with Vinny, he got real nice about stuff, and he kept saying that he wanted Keith and I to form his fan club for him. And so we were like, okay, well, I thought, here's a chance to actually do an official fan club, to work with a band on that same level, not just be the fanboy who comes in and it's like, oh, hey, here I am, kind of thing. So I sat down and I talked to Keith, and we figured out how we would split things and do things. And I eventually ended up working with Vinny. I took on doing his official fan club, got to meet Mark Slaughter, Dana Strum was the first person that I met who was a, wealth of information, because Dana was actually the guy who put Randy Rhoads in Ozzy Osbourne's band. And Dana had all the, Randy Rhoads stories and had them all firsthand. He even gave me a 8x10 of Jakey Lee standing there he had his arm up on a wall, and it was like a tiled wall. And I said to Dana, looks like it was taken in the bathroom. And he said, yeah, I took that in the men's room at some club in LA. But at the very bottom, it said Jakey Lee, guitarist Ozzy Osbourne, management Dana Strum, and had his current telephone number at that time. So Dana was very well connected, and he was just a fun guy to talk to. And then Bobby Rock came into the band, and that was great. And Robert Fleischman left, and then Mark Slaughter eventually came in, which was, definitely a good choice for Vinny.
So then that means that at a certain point you had to make a decision whether keep working with Kiss and then move to Vinny, or you were doing both things at the same time. So
well, I really wanted to make that transition into Vinny, and what changed my mind, or at least made the decision for me or made it easier, was we took out a full page ad congratulating Kiss with the Kiss Asylum record. And we also took out a full page ad for Vinnie Vincent's album. And I wrote the copy on both of them. And when, they came out in separate issues, but the Kiss Asylum one came first, and then eventually the Vinnie Vincent one came out. And when it came out, Chris Lank called me, and he said, hey, he says, just want to let you know, he said, we were looking through Faces magazine. Paul Stanley saw the ad you guys took out, and he fell out of his chair. I thought it was referring to the Kiss one. So I went, well, that's great. And he said, what's so great about that? And then he explained to me, because I hadn't seen
the other one,
the issue yet, because it hadn't hit the newsstands.
Right.
And it kind of took me back, but it also opened my eyes to the fact that, when you're a Kiss fan, you love everybody. You want to know what they're doing, what's going on. You don't realize the behind the scenes, kind of like a bad marriage type thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, there's two sides to each story, and I was
Yeah.
hearing Vinnie's side, but I never really asked Kiss about it. I asked Eric about it, and Eric was pretty open and honest about it, but he was still very diplomatic about it too. He didn't go, oh, he just wanted to play guitar solos. He wanted to do, he didn't go into all that. He was just like, he was a really talented player, and he explained things. But
Yeah.
you know, but going in, transitioning to work with Vinnie was like kind of jumping to the whole next level.
Mm-hmm.
Because I went from fan, and then I had to realize this is a business.
That's right. Excellent.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
now it's really on me.
Yeah.
And, you know, I ended up selling most of the Kiss collection that I had because that's how I funded the business to get that started.
Mm.
And I set it all up. I incorporated it. I incorporated it actually on my parents' wedding anniversary, which was kind of ironic. Actually, July 13th, this past July, was 37 years.
Oh, wow.
But,
Wow.
Incorporated the business, got everything going, and then I was on board with Vinnie's thing. So it was going to New York, meeting with all the record company people. It wasn't just conversing with them on the telephone, but now it was actually going into their offices, meeting the president of the record company, meeting the chrysalis of chrysalis, you know, meeting the guys that all formed this company, and then figuring out who the key players were. And about the only thing I learned was the mailroom guy was always the guy you wanted to know. Because if you wanted something, you called the mailroom guy. He could find it because he was in everybody's office. He always got it. But, you know, we sat down, we put together this whole thing. We decided to put out a Pink 45 for Vinnie's record. We took the mailing list from the Kiss Force fan club. We sent it out to everybody, along with a little letter from Vinnie. You know, and it just kind of took off from
So
there.
it made sense, you know, but it was a stepping up on your career, I guess. So it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's when my mother got a little concerned, because my mother was like, what is all this? You know, she thought I was going to become a drug addict or alcoholic. And well, the band was on tour at the time with Alice Cooper. And they had a couple days off. So my mother said she wanted to meet him. I mentioned it to George Stewart, and I said, hey, I was just joking when I said, hey, my mom wants to have you guys over for dinner. You know, why don't you come? And he went, sure, we can make that happen.
Oh, wow.
So they pull up on his big tour bus, and George Stewart says to him,
look at that.
I get on the bus, and George is sitting there going, okay, this is what we're going to do. You're going to go in, you're going to be gracious. I don't want to hear any language on anybody. You know, you're going to be polite. It's yes, sir. No, sir. He said, I better not hear anything else. Yeah, so all those guys paraded to my mom's house, and you know, it was funny. My mom passed away, I think 13 years ago, and at my mother's viewing, there was pictures of her with Vinnie Vincent, Ace Frehley, Alice Cooper, Joan Jett, and Buddy was like, wow, you know, what's up with, you know, your mom? You know, I was like, yes, my mom used to get around.
Oh my God, this is fascinating. So, you know, you gave me actually, this is great. We're discussing this kind of stuff, Dave. So, we get a kind of a sense of Vinnie from another perspective. You know, we've heard so many things about Vinnie, you know, but how would you describe Vinnie as a person? Because you seem to have had a stronger relationship with him that went actually beyond business.
I think when I'm going to try to put this in a nice way. I mean, I don't want to down the guy, but it's, you know, when the chips were down, and it was kind of that whole me against the world kind of thing, nicest guy in the world.
Good.
But just as things were starting to really open up and break through, which started to happen during the All Systems Go album, because the record company came in and said, you know what, not so much on the guitar solos. Let's put Mark Slaughter out front. He's this young guy, he's a good-looking guy. He's kind of a cross between like the Karate Kid and Eddie Van Halen. He's got the good Bon Jovi looks to him. Let's get him out there. Let's sell that. And then things start to take off, and then all of a sudden Vinnie comes up and says, you know what, I don't want this band anymore.
Okay.
And
got it.
Yeah. I mean, I used to go to his house. I would spend the night. We'd sit there. We'd watch movies all the time. I mean, I have to tell you, to this day, I cannot watch RoboCop because we sat up, and it was the first and only time I ever watched that movie was at his house. And it was the very next day when there was the knock on the door, and I answered the door. It's two dudes I didn't recognize, some guy with the hat on, sunglasses, a bald-headed guy, and I was like, what do you want? They're holding the box going, Vinnie here? And I'm like, yeah, come on in. And I went and I got Vinnie, and Vinnie's talking to him, and, he opens it up. It's a platinum record for David Lee Roth's Eat 'Em and Smile. And Vinnie's like, oh, this is so great. And he goes, David, he says, this is Greg Bissonette. And he's introduced me to him. And he goes, and of course, Dave. And then the hat comes off, the hair comes down, the sunglasses. And I'm like, David Lee Roth.
Oh my!
Which, love Van Halen. So it was like, and you don't want, and again, you don't want to be the fanboy, but at the same time, you're like, God, I hope nobody can smell that because I think I did just crap myself,
Wow.
But it's, you do that. I mean, Vinnie was a good guy. I mean, he was, out of all the artists that I've ever worked with, I will say that he is probably the most talented person that I've ever worked with. And I really hope that they keep talking about this new record, new music, whatever it is. I hope that he releases new music. He deserves to. I mean, the world deserves to hear that. I mean, do we all want to hear the 50-mile-an-hour guitar solos? No.
Yeah, maybe not.
And I think that was one of the things that maybe drew a wedge between Vinnie and I was honest with him. When, Vinnie went in and he fired the whole band. I mean, I heard from Dana Strum and Mark and Bobby that night saying, hey, Vinnie fired everybody. Did you say anything? What happened? And, when I talked to him, I was like, Vinnie, nobody really wants to hear those guitar solos. Maybe you should just go out and be a songwriter. He could have been the next Desmond Child because
big time. Yeah.
Try to find somebody who can write a better song than that guy. I mean, it's incredible stuff, but we don't need to hear the,
the
all
shredding.
the time.
Yeah.
I love the first Invasion album, but I think honestly, if you took all the guitar solos, chopped them all up, and put it all together, I don't know that you'd be able to distinguish one solo from the other.
That's true.
So as the second album, it was more melodic. He was more into the, playing as he felt kind of thing.
Yeah, songs. Yeah.
And songs. To me, it's like, Eddie Van Halen, great guitar player, will always go down as one of the best. But you listen to Van Halen, you don't hear all that, running up and down the scales and trying to play as fast as he can. Randy Rhoads, same thing. You didn't hear all that. But they're great guitar players. And the core to anything, I mean, I remember when I worked with White Lion, I asked Vito Bratta, what's your favorite Van Halen album? Because he was a big Eddie Van Halen fan. And he said 5150. I went, really? And he said, yeah. He says, it's not just about guitar playing. He said, it's about the songs.
The songs, right.
And it's like, that's really what it is.
Got it. Yeah.
But that's kind of Vinnie in a nutshell. Hopefully that's not too bad of a description. I mean, I love the guy, miss the guy. I haven't seen him since the Invasion split up, actually.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, that long.
Yeah. So, I mean, somebody recently told me that they had talked to him about the possibility of me coming out to one of his things, but I think he may be upset that I'm still friends with Mark, Dana, and Bobby, but
That's life.
Yeah, and I grew up with Mark, Dana, and Bobby, and it's like, you know what? If you're married and I'm friends with you and your wife, and you split up, I'm not going to take a side,
right? Absolutely,
because my memories with you and with her are probably two totally different things, and then the memories together. That doesn't mean that we have to be enemies or not like each other. And it's been what, almost 40 years, for God's sakes. You either let things go or you just hold on to it and be miserable the rest of your life.
Don't hold any grudges, that's it. No.
And I'm not like that. I mean, I see Mark and Dana, and God, we have a great time. Recently at M3, which is a big music festival here in Maryland that they have every year with, they call it all the hair bands. Slaughter played, they put us on the guest list. We went down, and my wife, she has MS, so she's been using a walker when we go to things where we have to do a lot of walking. And I sent the text to Bobby Rock, and I said, hey, dude, look, we're not backstage, but this is where we are. He actually ran out into the crowd.
Nice. So
ran over, gave her a big hug, and said to me, he's like, Holmes, I can't stay. He says, we're getting ready to get on the bus, and then we got to catch a plane, got to go. And he ran out, but it's nice that people remember you. That,
of course. That's really cool.
It's like, regardless of what happened. It's time to move on. And I mean, the last time that I sat down and had a nice conversation with Mark Slaughter, that's what he said to me. He says, David, it's been 40 years since we've known each other. And he says, I have to tell you, man, he said, I feel like every time I see you, whether it's, 3 months or 3 years, he said, we always pick up right where we left off. And he said, and if I never tell you again, he said, I love you and I'm so proud of you. And I was like, dude, I said, I'm proud of you. I said, I don't know anybody else that's got an American Music Award. And he went, yep. And we laughed about it. And it's like, okay, good. So,
Dave, you described so many amazing experiences, with the band, with the management, with all these artists, with Vinnie Vincent. Now, once Vinnie's band broke up, I mean, where do you go from there? What happened after that? Did you create another fan club?
Well, what happened was, I took everything that I had with Vinnie's band, with the Invasion stuff, and that was actually my property because of the way that we had structured the whole fan club. And I went up to Chrysalis and I told them, I said, hey, look, here's my idea for what I think would work. And I gave them the whole outline of a marketing plan for an album. And I said, here's the mailing list, do with it what you want. In the meantime, one of the people that I met while Vinnie was out on the Alice Cooper tour was a guy named Alex Richter. And Alex was standing outside the Tower Theater, and Alex was a big boy. He was like 350 pounds, and he's holding up a sign that says, Vinnie Vincent is God. So I said to Vinnie, when we pulled up, I was like, hey, I said, some fat kids out there. I said, he's got a sign that says, Vinnie Vincent's God. I said, you have to meet him. And Vinnie's like, it's kind of cold. And I was like, dude, you have to meet this guy. So when he got off the bus, I grabbed Alex's camera. I took a picture of him and Vinnie, and then I actually took him backstage. Well, he and I kept talking, and he told me he was a member of the fan club, number 184, the Vinnie Vincent fan club, and how much he loved it. And then he said, there's a band here in Philly. He said, you have to meet these guys. They're called Brittany Fox. So I went and I sent all my stuff to Brittany Fox's management. Their manager, Brian, got back in touch with me. He told me that this is exactly what they were looking for. He couldn't seem to find me someplace, but now that we have it, we made an agreement, worked with Brittany Fox. He had the same vision as I did, which was very fan-oriented, which is get the fans to write letters to the magazines, get the fans to call Doll MTV, get the fans to get their letters published in magazines, because that's where the hype goes. Get them to call radio, do all that stuff. And we worked together on all that stuff. And Brittany Fox ended up with a gold record, came just shy of platinum. You know, they had a couple more records after that. Didn't fare quite as well, but then again, the original band broke up and that happens. But, you know, that was a fun time because, you know, to be on tour with that band, I'll never forget, it was November of 1988, I want to say. I remember it was November because we were getting close to the playoff time for NFL, and the Eagles made the NFL. And the bass player, Brittany Fox, was more excited that the Eagles had made the playoffs than it was. They just got the call that they had a gold record.
Right.
Which the chances of Brittany Fox getting another gold record were a lot better than the Eagles going back to the Super Bowl.
To say the least.
So again, Dave, you got to work with so many musicians, but I really want to know about this one. Your relationship with Joan Jett. Talk to us about that.
You know, I've never had anybody ask me how I got the job with Joan Jett, but it was kind of, and again, it all comes back to Kiss.
Mm-hmm.
George Sewitt, who was Ace Frehley's manager, then he stopped managing Ace, then he was Vinnie's manager, then he was not Vinnie's manager, then he was out with Billy Idol, and I always kept in touch with George. And we were talking one day, and he said, I just sent over all my stuff to Joan Jett because they're looking for a tour manager. And I thought, well, you know, if it's good enough for George, it's good enough for me. So I sent my stuff to Joan. Well, I ended up getting a job with him. George didn't, you know, which was kind of ironic, but did the fan club for Joan. The first thing we did was work a song called I Hate Myself for Loving You, which Sony Records, I should say it was CBS at the time. They liked it, but it wasn't, they didn't think it was the hit that it was going to be.
Okay.
Joan had I Love Rock and Roll, which was huge. The next record was called Album. That was huge. Blues Results, not as big. Then she put out Good Music, not as big. She had just done the movie with Michael Fox. And now she had this killer record, killer song. CBS wasn't behind it, but Joan believed in it. So Joan took her own money and said, you know what, we're going to do this ourselves. And that's where came in, helped to work that. And she ended up with another platinum record. And, you know, then we had the next record was the Hit List. And then she put out Notorious. And in 1983, when I got married, Joan actually, again, I was joking when I said, you know, you and Kenny should come to the wedding because her manager is Kenny Laguna. Kenny was a big bubblegum guy back in the, you know, late 50s, wrote a lot of that stuff. He was the one that, you know, convinced Neil Bogart to sign Joan Jett onto Boardwalk after he sold out Casablanca. And, you know, Kenny was just, he's got so many gold and platinum records of a lot of that stuff like Tutti Frutti and that sort of things. And, but I had jokingly said to him, you guys should, you know, I'm getting married. You should come to the wedding. And the only say that I had in that wedding was I wanted to get married early in the morning because I'm a morning person. The ceremony was at 9:00.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Well,
So 9:00 on a Saturday morning, we're getting married. And who comes in but Kenny Laguna?
oh,
And I was like, dude, what are you doing here? And he was like, yeah, we played last night, South Carolina. And he said, so here I am. Well, 11:00 when we go for the ceremony, who comes walking in but Joan Jett?
Oh, wow.
Her road manager drove her from South Carolina.
Isn't that nice? Wow.
She hung out for a couple hours. I will say that the best part of this ceremony and something that always struck me as with Joan, I mean, because she's kind of like a big sister to me in a lot of respects. And I had an older sister who was, we used to say severely retarded. Now, we say, very special needs, I think. But
Mm-hmm.
she had a lot of things. And when she passed away, she was almost 50. And, my sister had the mind of maybe like a 3 or 5-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so Joan comes in, and the DJ, when she saw Joan, he put on I Hate Myself for Loving You.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister, who just loved music, I mean, she loved music more than I did. I mean, God, when we were a kid, we'd have to protect our record albums because she would come and take them. But when she heard the song, she just knew when she liked the song. And she literally walked up to Joan Jett, not knowing who she is, knowing anything about her, grabbed her hands and made her clap her hands.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
And Joan,
Wow.
being the trooper that she was, grabbed my sister's hands, and the two of them stood there and they danced along.
Oh, my
And
goodness, man. That's so sweet.
But that's like, and that really is to give you the essence of who Joan Jett is.
Oh, wow.
People see her on stage and they think, God, she's like 6 foot tall. Nah, Joan's like 5'3". And they look at her and they go, man, you look like you're so mean and you're like such a badass. And then she's just like, hi, and you're like, she's just the sweetest person in the world. I mean, she comes in, she's always smiling. I don't think I've ever taken a picture of her when she's just not smiling from ear to ear. And, so I've started with them, and what was that, 88? And here we are, 2023, and I still do a few things for them. And,
oh, really? Still?
Wow,
That's
fantastic.
So
that's awesome.
Seeing her get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was like one of the greatest things, because when she was first eligible, I kept saying to Kenny, it's going to happen. And the first time she got nominated, and I was like, oh, it's going to happen, Kenny, it's going to happen. He's like, we got to be patient. And then didn't happen. Second time, still didn't happen. Third time, it's like, Kenny, come on now. Third time's the charm here. It's going to happen. And then she got in, and, it was enough to, make you kind of want to cry, because it's like, here's somebody that just such a great person, down to earth, and, produced a double DVD of all of her videos. And the other night, my wife Kim and I were watching the top 10 reveal on Access TV, and they were playing songs with the word rock in it. So of course, I Love Rock and Roll was in the top 5, and when it came up, that's what I said to her. I said, I was the one who found the color version of I Love Rock and Roll in the vaults at Blackheart, because the video, when it came out initially, was black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And what actually tipped me off to the fact that they had it in color was Joan's mom. Her mother said to me, Joan was so proud of this red jumpsuit that she bought. And then when they filmed the video, she just thought it looked awful because it was like red on red. Because she's up on a bar dancing in front of a red brick wall. So if you look up I Love Rock and Roll on YouTube and you find the color version,
you'll see that.
Yeah, that was the reason how that got out, because I thought that if you're going to do a video anthology, you put out the original black and white, then put out the color version. You put out videos that you didn't like, because there was a couple that she didn't like, and she was like, oh, I hated this. But an anthology is a complete collection.
Yeah, that's what it is, exactly.
Yeah. And that came out in 2002, and anybody that actually has like the it's called Real Wild Child video anthology. Real Wild Child is an old Iggy Pop song, and Joan had recorded that. But if you happen to have the DVD and you play the second disc, you go all the way to the end, you get to the very end, and you get to all the credits and still let it play. You see the Blackheart Records copy. Okay. Let it play a little bit longer, and you will see my father-in-law dancing with Joan Jett at my wedding.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no, it's there. Oh, my God. Wow.
And then, because he had died that year, we had put a dedication on it, said it was dedicated to him. And when that dedication comes up, you see me bent over dancing with a little girl who was George Sewett's daughter.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my goodness.
It was only, I think, 4 or 5 years old at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Wow.
yeah, because I still have the video thing where George and his wife, he's holding on to his daughter who's half asleep, and his son's standing there crying, and George is like, I hope you have a whole lot of kids because this is how you're going to end up.
Oh my God, man! Such amazing stories, man. And you know what I love about all of this is that your approach. It's not only about doing some kind of business with artists or musicians, but it's creating kind of a personal rapport with them. It's you went through. That's why at the very beginning of the episode we were talking about your experiences, which is actually the best that we're gonna have from this conversation, because and that says a lot of the kind of person that you are, David. So creating that kind of relationship with the people you're working with. So that's amazing.
And I think that goes with any job, though. It's when you're working with people, you spend more time with them than you do the people that you really want to spend the time with.
Yeah.
And, you have to develop a relationship with them. It has to be professional, and you still have to get the job done.
Sure.
But at the same time, you have to have a good time with it.
Yeah.
Or otherwise, you're just going to be miserable. And
yeah.
I know, like, White Lion, when I started working with them, by the time we got to that second record with Big Game, they were getting ready to put out a song, a video for Radar Love. And I was backstage hanging out with Mike Tramp, and we were checking out the ladies, and we're having a good time. And his manager came over. He's like, David, look, this is what we need to do. He says, we need a #1 video on MTV. Radar Love's coming out. We need to do it. And I went, yeah, not a problem. He said, well, look, he said, I'll give you $500 if you can make this number. And I was like, okay, cool, dude. We'll get it taken care of. And he was like, you're not taking this serious.
Yes,
I was like, I am taking this serious. I said, but right now, I said, he and I got other things on our mind. And,
yeah.
And he was just like, well, he says, call me later when you can take it serious. And I said, I tell you what, I will take this serious. I will bet you $1,000 that I can make that video #1. And then Mike Tramp looked at him. He goes, shake his hand. So he's telling his manager, shake his hand. And as soon as we shook hands, Mike looked at his manager and said, you're going to pay him $1,000, aren't you? 2 weeks later, video came out. Somebody from MTV that I knew called me that day, and they were like, hey, the results are in. Radar Love, White Lion, #1 today. MTV. I went,
there you go.
So I call up to Brooklyn, New York, because the White Lion's management used to be, they owned L'Amour's, the famous rock club in New York. They own that club. And I called there, talked to them, and I said, hey, video's #1. They were like, no way. And I went, oh, yeah. I said, and I want the money in cash. I said, because, the IRS doesn't even know about this.
Exactly.
And he thought I was kidding. And he called me back an hour later, and he was like, how did you find out before we did? Because they always call us first. And I was like, well, I know people too. Yeah, just so, yeah.
Beautiful. One gene in the pocket. That's awesome.
Nice.
Love it. Dave, you mentioned before about your collection, selling stuff. I know that you were also involved in creating merch, over the years. But let me ask you: do you still keep a huge collection at your place, or some stuff that has some emotional connection to you?
I won't say. A lot of times, people will come into my office and there is a lot of Kiss Gold and Platinum records, but there's also a lot of Joan Jett and a bunch of other bands, but they see the Kiss stuff first. I mean, and they know that that's my band. But, the things that I tend to collect tend to be more sentimental. So the Gold and Platinum records are definitely a big plus, but like, I was at Lydia Chris's house when I worked with her on her Sealed with a Kiss book. I had taken a mock-up of the cover of the book, but I put it together using foam board so she could get the thickness of what the book looked like, as well as the actual size and feel it. And while we were sitting and talking, somebody came to her door. She starts explaining to them, showing them the book, going, "Oh my God, you need to, see my book." And the guy's like, "Wow, this is great. Maybe I can talk to your guy about doing my next book." It turned out that was Bob Gruen, who does all the famous, pictures of John Lennon. He did all those. And, so I have a lot of gifts that Lydia gave me over the years that are very personal to me. I've got some signed things that were given to me when I did all the Kiss merchandise during the reunion tour. I think their name was Garland, Gatlin, I forget, but they did the nice, they did the first Christmas ornaments that had the band in the Kiss Alive costumes, or the Alive 2 costumes, Love Gun, whatever you want to call it. But then they did a big artist proof that was all pewter, and it's signed and whatnot. They gave me one of those. So little things like that, to me are real personal. A lot of things my wife just looks at and she's like, "When are you going to get rid of all this crap?" And so so I don't want to say that I have to come to my house and go, "Hey, come look at my Kiss collection." No, I mean, I'm not a vinyl collector, so I have CDs. And like I said, the things that I have, the music is always the most important thing to me because that's what I listen to. That's what makes me happy. And everything else, it's like, I can go around my office and just show you and go, "Oh, this came from this person or this came from that person." It might not be a Kiss thing. It might be a Rolling Stones. It might be a Van Halen thing. But it's little things like that that mean, the world to me. So, I mean, you don't see it. Well, maybe you do here. Let's see. Let's see. I got a couple little heart-shaped things up there. They all say thanks on it. And as stupid as they are, those are handwritten notes from Lydia Chris when I've done something for her, and then she sent me something. So she'd always do a little heart-shaped little thank you. It's stupid things that mean more.
But it means a lot.
Yeah.
It means a lot to you. Of course.
No, your collection is sort of like what we're doing on this episode. You look at your collection and it's about your experiences and the memories, and that's what makes a true collection special.
Your life. Yeah,
exactly.
I had somebody today, I was on a Zoom call with somebody who had no idea about the whole music thing, and they asked about it because they were like, "Hey, is that Gold Records?" Because when I get on different Zoom meetings, I use a different computer that faces a different way. So what they're seeing is like the Psycho Circus one, and what else is over there? LA Guns and the Joan Jett one, and they're like, "Wow, is that Gold Records?" And I said, "Yeah," and he was like, "What's that from?" I said, "Well, prior to doing this," I said, "I worked in the music," and he went real nonchalant about it. And it's like, dude, it's like a job, it's what you do. You don't think about that stuff. And sometimes, like during COVID, I had a little bit more time to think about it, and I started remembering some of the stupid stuff, like the first time Backstage, and Alice Cooper was sitting on a road case, and I went over and sat down next to him. This was on the first Vinnie Vincent tour. And I went over and I sat down next to him and I went, "What's up?" And I was a huge Alice Cooper fan, still am. And he was like, "Yeah, it's really cold outside, isn't it?" And I was like, "Yeah, it is." And then Vinny's road manager comes over, grabs me, and he's like, "Never ever talk to the headliner, never talk to," and I'm like, "Dude, we were talking about the weather."
That's right.
And he said, "Don't pester them." And it's like, okay. So after that, it's like, am I supposed to just walk by and go, "How you doing, Alice?"
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah.
But that's it. The people who pester these celebrities, these musicians, are fanboys, and they don't want to be bothered with that. You see them as human beings, and that's why you create these bonds with them, I think.
Well, I think that I view them like I do everybody else, that we all get up in the morning, We all have good, we have good days, we have bad days.
Mhm.
And, there's always one of those things they always say, don't ever meet one of your idols.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've met a few that I thought, wow,
Yeah.
that was really a letdown.
Yeah.
But then you have to remind yourself, maybe they're not having a good day. Maybe they just had an argument with their girlfriend, wife, whatever,
Yeah.
And you just you let it go. I've been lucky, and I'm not as personable as my wife. I should bring her in because we went to. She didn't necessarily understand a lot of the stuff that I had done over the years, and I took her to a Kiss convention because I was working with Bobby Rock, who plays with Lita, and he was in Vinnie Vincent's band.
Mm-hmm.
He did a book about his Vinnie Vincent years, and I had helped him through all of that and did a bunch of fact checking and whatnot. So when he said he was going to do his convention, I was like, oh, cool. I said, why don't we come and help you? Because I don't think that any artist should ever really handle money. It just doesn't look classy,
Yeah.
If I were an artist, I wouldn't want to say to somebody, yeah, it's $40 if you want my picture. It's just tacky.
True,
but
true.
I'd hand Gene my money, but that's a whole nother story. So we went to that, and when we were there, Robert Fleshman walks over, and he said hello, and he was kind of nice, but then an hour later, my wife's coming over going, hey, look at this T-shirt that, it's a painting that Robert did. He gave me a T-shirt. And I was like, really? And Mark Slaughter comes in and he's like, hey, David, what's shaking? What's going on? We're having a good time. And then, Kim's like, hey, look what Mark gave me. He gave me this really cool T-shirt. And I went, really? 40 years he never gave me a T-shirt. Lita Ford comes in. And the two of them were talking back and forth, and Lita's got a poster there with the one where she's wearing the assless chaps.
Yeah.
Right.
And my wife's like, oh, she said, I'd just bite that little hiney. And Lita's like, oh, she says, can I sign one for you? And she's giving that to her. She's giving her some jewelry. And I'm like, really? It's not going to give me anything. It's like they look at me like, dude, hold the door. Yeah, but with Kim, it's like they all come full circle. I mean, even at the first time I took her and my stepdaughter to see Joan Jett, Kenny Laguna, Joan's manager, picks up the phone. He calls somebody, and he's like, yeah, he said, sending David Snowden down. Whatever he wants, it's for a stepdaughter. You let him have. So we go down, and my stepdaughter's like, oh, I'll have that jacket, and I like that T-shirt, and I'll have that tote bag. And I was like,
really?
What years? They've never given me anything. Give me some great memories. I made a good lifestyle, but still,
you're getting this stuff now.
I used to design this stuff, and she's there going, yeah, look what I got, and I'm like, I didn't get nothing. But I also know too that that's a level of respect that they're showing me, and
of course,
that means I would rather that have. I mean, it's like if you guys went to a show with me for something, it was an artist that I did something with, I would rather them show you that kind of courtesy. Because I've already been there, done that, and honestly, most of the time doesn't mean anything to me. But if you went in and you were meeting an artist for the first time, like somebody like Joan Jett, I mean, I always knew she'd be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and now she is. I mean, she's a musical icon, for God's sakes. And every Monday Night Football, we're going to hear the Joan Jett song.
Absolutely.
So that's a cool thing. So you go in and you meet her and you have that a good experience. And I know that it's part of her personality, but it also shows a lot of, respect for me. And I appreciate that more than I think I do anything, because that's just a good thing to make other people happy and to see that smile. And that's what made me so good at doing fan clubs, because I understood that, because I wanted to be there. I wanted, I'm the geeky little guy who knelt down next to Gene Simmons' Zach's bass and went, "Hey, here I am with Gene Zach's," with his roadie going, "Don't touch it," Can I at least get near it? It's like, but I understand that, and I want other people to have that too, because that's a fun experience. And I know that the meet and greets, people think, well, it's a lot of money to jump in a picture. I mean, if that's what you want, that's what's good.
Yeah, go for it. That's right.
Yeah. And to me, that's the sad part of the music industry today is somebody will pay $1,500 to stand next to somebody for 15 seconds, but they won't pay $10 to buy music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's sad.
True.
It's true.
That's a whole nother story.
Yeah. Well put.
So, David, before we close the curtain on this episode, I want to hear a little bit about David Snowden promotions. Talk to us about that.
Gosh, I mean, I do so many different things. I mean, it started out as fan clubs, then got into a lot of marketing, then it got into merchandising, because like all during the late 80s, all through, I think 2006, I supplied Joan Jett with all of her tour merchandise, not only the designs, but having it manufactured, getting it there, making sure it was all I did a bunch of TV stuff. Brittany Fox's original manager, Brian Kushner, used to do a thing called TV merch. Mm-hmm. And I got to do stuff for the first Twilight movie, the series Supernatural, Charmed, Xena, Angel, Roswell. Wow. Got so many different TV shows because he was doing all this official merchandise. So I got to be a part of all of that with him. So I've done design, I've done management, I've done producing, I've done video directing, so many things. I mean, it's like lately I've been having just a good time doing photo retouching for people with old pictures that they send, to be able to take that old crinkled up weathered picture and kind of make it look brand new. That's fun.
Yeah.
Did you do that for some of the pictures on Lydia's book?
Actually, I scanned in over 2,000 pictures for Lydia's book.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Each one, we sat down, we retouched. When I went to Lydia's house, which that's a whole nother story, but first time I went there, we talked about stuff and photographed a bunch of stuff. Then a couple weeks later, she drove up in the Mercedes that you see a lot of pictures of it in her book, because she still has that original Mercedes that her and Peter bought from his Kiss days. And it was parked in my driveway for a couple days, and we sat here and sat up all night scanning things, original blueprints and whatnot.
Wow.
But tried to take the pictures and bring them back to the way that they should be.
Right.
Because you see people, they post stuff on the internet and they're old, they're yellow, they're discolored. It's nice to have it where it's color corrected and it almost looks like, it's brand new.
Yeah.
You're never going to have anything that's going to look like today's technology.
Yeah.
The digital stuff, God, anytime somebody takes a picture of you, like, oh God, I'm hideous.
Yeah.
You don't want anybody to see that. But you want to have in doing her book, because she wanted it to be a scrapbook, we wanted everything to be as high quality as possible. So that's actually where I really learned how to do retouching.
Retouching
that many.
Yeah.
And it made it easy to learn, because when you're also dealing with a subject that you just
passionate. Right.
Yeah,
that's right. Exactly.
That's why I always tell people, well, if you want to learn, if you want to come over and I'll show you how to do it, bring over some family pictures or bring over pictures of your kids, and then let's go through the process, because it's so much easier to do something with something that you love. Because if somebody gave you a picture of a bunch of old people and said, hey, make that look new, old people. We're all heading there, but I don't need to see it. It's
True.
not the, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what's in the future for David Snowden?
God, I want to retire.
We all do. We
6 years. I have 6 years.
We all do.
Yeah, I told my wife I wanted to retire in 4 years, and she said I'd like to have a new kitchen. And I was like,
Oh, you're not
my
retiring
God,
in 4
no,
years.
don't go there.
yeah, it's
Oh,
gonna add some more years to it. But you know, at this point in the game, like I always tell anybody that asks, if somebody comes to me with a project, I'll listen to what it is that they want, and then I kind of pick and choose what I want to do. And I recently did. Did you guys see the award that they have for the Gene Simmons money bag sodas?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's a piece that's hanging on my wall right here. That's where my Gene Simmons one hung for a while because I actually did those for Gene.
Oh, wow.
The people from Moneybag had contacted me, and they sent me over, a couple of the soda bottles and the Gene thing, and I was like, okay, and I mocked up something and we put it together. And initially, they only wanted one. It really wasn't cost effective to do just one.
Of course not. Yeah.
So I ended up putting two together, which I had to use different printers because I used a printer that there's now such thing as metallic digital art. Copy machines can basically put out digital stuff. And I got to spend a few hours trying to figure out all of that, how it all works. And they had die cut the whole thing with the soda bottles. And there's supposed to be one hanging up at the second one, actually, Gene wanted for himself, which is in the Vegas Kiss Museum.
In the Kiss Museum. Okay.
Yeah. But, it's got the money bag at the top. It's got his thing and a plaque at the bottom. But that was a lot of fun to put those together. And I recently did another, a batch of them for Every Mother's Nightmare. There's another band out of LA, just had a new record come out. They're called Pump 5. I did, I don't know, 9 or 10 of those because sometimes people get really upset and they go, what are people making their own record awards? Now, you know what? If you used to, when bands used to sell 500,000 copies, you still paid for that. As a band member, you paid for it. It came out of your money. And then you had to give them out to whoever was involved, but you still paid for it. And a lot of people never understood that. It's just like if you, on your webcast, if this episode gets 1 million views, YouTube will send you a thing and say, hey guys, do you want to spend $100? And we'll send you out a YouTube thing that says you have 1 million views or something.
Yeah.
Everybody pays for that. So
of course.
I just put together some stuff for Pump 5. That was kind of nice. And, so, at this point, anything's game because there's so many different things that I do. I always feel like it's a loaded question because I've done photography and I've shot everybody from, little babies to the president of the United States. So, I've run the gamut on that, design work, same sort of way. And, so I wish it was an easier answer and a simpler, quicker question because you're going to be like, oh my God, does he ever shut up?
Not at all. But David, I'll tell you something. If this episode gets 1 million views, we're going to come to you for a plaque.
Okay, exactly.
All right.
It'll be the one with the big L on it. Who listened to this loser for 1 million?
Not at all.
How is it possible?
You'd be like, God, what is David doing? He's sitting there playing it over and over.
Oh my God. Hey, David, in closing, a common theme in all of our interview episodes is that, being a Kiss fan is really a special thing, and you know better than anybody else. So to summarize the entire episode today, can you tell our listeners and us how Kiss and their fans helped you to have such a successful career and such an amazing life?
Well, it was because of doing that original fanzine and then fan club, and then Vinnie's and everything else. That's how I got to learn how to do graphic design.
Oh, okay.
And that's also how I started to understand how marketing worked. Then sales, So everything that I've done basically started with that.
Mm-hmm.
So doing that initial, and when I started doing it, everything was you typed it up and then it was cut and paste on graph paper.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's how it started. Now it's into high-end design, and all the biggest thing I've ever done has absolutely nothing to do with music. I never talk about it, never say anything about it, but it's a lot of fun because sometimes I will go to different artists that I've worked with and I'll ask to see something in their wallet when they pull them out. And I go, yeah, I did that. 60 million people have that. It's not the best thing, but it's cool and it works, and that's kind of a neat thing. So to see that and to know that that's where it came from is kind of a good thing. So,
yeah. And what about the fans? So what did you get out of the fans, being a part of the Kiss family for so many years? So, of course, we talked about memories and everything, but, we are at a point in life where we start to value a lot of stuff that it's not material. So what about, the love that you got from the fans? So what can you say about that?
I still get that. I think that that's the best part, is meeting people, hanging out with people. And there's so many of them that when we go to shows, we see them, whether it's a Kiss show or something else, going to people's houses, a lot of times going through their collection, seeing some of the stuff. And, I'm not the type of person that goes, yeah, I did that, but I just look at it and think, wow, I can't believe they kept that, or that they have that, it's just like, people come up to me all the time and I go, hey, could you sign Lydia's book? And it's like, oh, I don't want to ruin it, but I also understand that, so, I mean, it's great, you get together with Kiss fans. And I mean, to me, anything that's music related, I've met more good people through music than I think anything, whether it was Kiss music or other stuff, just seeing people and having that, time together, when you're backstage and everybody thinks it's such a cool thing. And then you're just like, this ain't nothing. Let's go sit. And then you start talking to somebody and it becomes a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's right.
And, some of my best memories are when you can actually say to somebody, you grab them by the arm and say, yeah, come with me. And then they realize that they're going to meet their person. And then they're like, I didn't know. And it was like, well, I just had the chance and
that's right.
Because that's fun.
Yeah. You've been through that.
Dave, this was such an amazing interview because you talked about meeting musicians like, Vinnie, Eric, Joan, and you had such nice experiences with them. They're such nice people. But really, I think it's a reflection of who you are, because if you put out positivity comes back to you. So I think all of your experiences with these people is a reflection of the person that you are. And I felt that this interview really brought out the person that is David Snowden. And it was such an honor and a privilege to get to know you on this episode.
I appreciate you saying that. But, hey, you guys come down to Baltimore, we're going to hang out. So
better believe it. I would love to.
Yeah. And just to echo what Paz was saying, it was really, we feel honored, to have you here with us and talk at the level that we're doing this, because we could be talking, specifics, Kiss minutia for hours, but we've been there, we went through that. For us, it has much more value to know David the person, and his experiences and share with us. I think that makes it really special. So we want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. I mean, it was good. So you guys do have to come to visit because my wife did get a new kitchen, so I can't retire yet. So
We gotta go. That's right.
and she is a really good cook, so you have to come.
Oh, there you go. Okay, we're gonna
We'll
go
take you up on
visit
that
Kim.
offer. Absolutely.
Thanks again, guys.
Thank you so much.
To the Kiss Army, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please send them to talktome@kissarmynationpodcast.com. Until the next time, remember, never stop rocking. Take care, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe on YouTube or follow us on Spotify, Automatic, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to make yourself heard. Leave us a comment on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. See you all soon, Kiss Army.